Yo, 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 good morning, good morning. Yo, 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 what's up, guys? No, I've been away for a couple days. Been away for a couple days, but been really just working on some projects. Had a lot of paperwork to do, like um, finalizing some grants and things like that. Uh, Preparing and organizing a couple of meetings that are coming up actually today. So, had a meeting. Was it last week? I had a meeting last week with no. Actually, that was this week. That was Monday. Y'all be doing so much shit. So Monday, I had a meeting with the museum uh, by myself. Actually, it was kind of weird because the museum wanted to meet with me and another artist who will be a part of the Black History Month exhibit. And but the other artist was at work. We're all starving artists. We all have regular jobs and stuff like that. So the other guy couldn't make it to the meeting. So essentially, I was the only person there with the lead gallery curator and her assistant, and it was the first time that I showed them the conceptual designs of the art installation interactive piece that I want to exhibit in the museum. And so we sat down and I showed them the functional models, and honestly, like, I don't think they seemed impressed. That's just my personal opinion. They they did not seem impressed. They did not seem uh, very excited about the concepts that I came up with. but they didn't seem highly disappointed. It's weird. They just had like a bland reaction to it. And they asked some obvious questions of size, weight, you know, how will it be mounted? If it needs to be mounted, will it be a freestanding installation? And so we went over some of those smaller details. And in actuality, I'm not exactly sure which will be the best way to display this. If we should have some sort of mounting system where they're anchored to the wall, or if we can weight them enough and put enough weight on it so that they're able to just freestand without falling or tipping over when people go to interact with it. So, that was Monday. We also went over some floor designs or floor layouts for the exhibit because essentially the space is a rectangular room. Um, I have the dimensions downstairs. They gave me some printouts, but it's a fairly large space, but it is just one room. And so there, the museum's ideas was to have some partition walls installed, which could be set up in several different ways in a variety of organizations where they said they have these movable walls that are yay high and yay wide to kind of break up the space so it feels like it's more than one room, and section areas off as a definitive line between this portion of the exhibition compared to this portion of the exhibition. And they said if we want to, we can add these walls to kind of give it more of a like areas where it's not just one space, but you have different sections and different areas within the same space. And I thought that was a good idea. So and today we have another meeting with the museum, and hopefully everyone will be there. Um, so we're gonna sit down and really go over all the ideas, and it's better when our whole board is there because honestly I think some most of my ideas are kind of like just I come up with a good idea every once in a while. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna brag, you know what I'm saying? I could I could do some smart shit occasionally, but I just try to surround myself with other smart people. So when all of us are together, it's better. It's just different brains, different avenues of thought, different ideas. And so the last meeting, I said it wasn't a bad meeting. It was just that I was there by myself. They tried to ask questions about two other members, and I'm like, I'm not them. I'm not going to speak for them. I don't actually know. Like, the last time that me and my board members spoke, we delegated tasks to certain individuals, and we were supposed to work on that. So we basically kind of compartmentalize the project, which is better. We have a this this broad idea and this main objective, and within this main objective we have smaller categories that we want to exhibit. And so we we took the main concept and the main theme and broke it up, and you do this and you do that and you do that and you do that. And so I'm just working on my part. So when they start asking questions about, oh, what about them and what about that, I'm like, I don't know. So today we'll all be together, and it should be all of the Black Scranton Project board members and the museum curator staff. And like I said, this is for Black History Month, February. So we have like 2 months, and that's it. And so all of our shit needs to be done in the next 2 months and ready for installation. So that's the goal. And so I'm working on these art installations. I still have to write a few more. I have to write a few more lines of script for some voiceovers for my TV show. I have to finish these paintings. I have. I really have to check some old emails because I may have 2 shows coming up next month for December. Um, Good morning with your beautiful self. How you doing? But I really do put shit on my calendar now. It's like got a lot going on, which is okay with me. Like I said, this year right here, 2019, this has been probably one of my most productive years. And it's weird because this is like, all right. Thank you for saying good morning. Go get that beauty sleep. I know you be working hard. Thank you, thank you. You know, this is what I do. So we're just gonna keep pushing this art and pushing this education, keep this thing moving. But yeah, 2019 has been a very, very productive year for me. It could have been more productive. I think I see more and more I still have like procrastination tendencies, and I don't know, sometimes I feel like I can just do more and create more. And so I'm just working on that. I'm just really just trying to focus because it's so easy to get distracted. So oh yeah, and my models. So when I went to the museum Monday, I took the models with. Oh, that's another part of the story. Like the museum, they seem kind of bland about what I wanted to do, and I was it kind of had me like second guessing. Like, is this not cool? You know, I thought it was cool. And anyway, but So I took the models to the print shop. Um, this the print shop that I'm going to have actually print the images on the material that I want to use. And so went to the museum, had a meeting with them, showed them, kind of explained what the concepts and idea was, and then left the museum, went to the print shop, showed these guys like, hey, this is the model, a conceptual model. Like, do you think we can build this out of better materials on a larger scale? Yo, and the guys at the print shop were like, yo, that's so fucking cool, man. That shit is hot. Yo, this is fucking dope. Like they just were praising these little models. And I was like, he's like, this is cool, man. You got it to work. It works. And and just seeing it work. And it's simple stuff. It's like it's just, you know, it's something for the kids. It really isn't. This isn't geared towards adults. This is something for kids to like touch and play with. And so I thought it was cool. And it's simple and it's just fun looking. And the guys at the print shop loved it. And they were like, we can definitely do this. He was like, all you need to do is give me some finalized digital images and we can go from there. And so that was Monday, and I attempted to start a finalized drawing for this thing, but then I stopped myself and I was like, well, because how I put this thing together is sectional. And so would I have to draw the pieces sectional for him like I did for myself, and then print it like that, or if I draw like just one entire image, could he manipulate that somehow and separate it himself? But since I'm going over there today, I'll stop by there and I'll take the models by there again, and so we can look at this because I really need to like just get this thing done. So I want this right here to be 5 feet tall by 3 feet wide. And this is a character of a local guy from the Scranton area who is well known and well loved, and actually broke some weightlifting records. And when you just hear people talk about him, like, he was just like one of those guys around town that everybody was kind of cool with. And so I want to honor him by putting this this installation of him in the museum, and have like actual photos and news clippings about him and his life. And then the cool thing is like when the kids go to play with it, uh, and his arms go up. So it's something that the kids can actually touch, play with, and not just have to look at or read some stuff. It's like it's a little toy. And we want this Black History Month to like have the kids have some fun in the museum. So I thought, having Chimesy lift some weights up, but essentially it should come back down each time by itself. I would just need, like I say, just a different bracket system from this, and just different materials. And I'm pretty sure, even if I had to weight it or whatever, that when it goes up and you let the string go, it'll come back down. It goes up and come down. goes up and comes down like that. So essentially, that's what I wanted to be able to do. But like I said, I'm gonna just do a more detailed drawing, add some color to it, and like I said, I need to see if I need to draw everything separate because his forearm, his hand, and the weight bars on both sides, that's like one piece, and then his bicep and his shoulder is one piece, and then his head and his body is one piece. So it's several pieces that make it do that. And so I'm wondering if I would have to draw those separate for him as well. And this is the other one, which is if I can understand. Oh. This is going to be a tribute to the volunteer firefighters and how their hook and ladder system and how they use that to actually reach higher floors on the buildings. So you can open up the windows and there will be information about the firefighters and like little images of a fire. It's just a burning building and the firefighters trying to save somebody, and all the doors open up and there's like lights in it. So just something cool for like young kids to go in there and play with, just like play with the windows and the door and stuff and open it up and they can read stuff about the history of Scranton. So I thought it was a good idea. But today we'll sit down and hash out some more ideas and see if we can go through with these concepts or if we want to change them or add something, change the content or, uh, you know, maybe change the size of them or whatever. But that'll be our main discussion today is just trying to finalize these ideas and concepts for February. And like I say, we don't have a lot of time left, so I hope today's meeting is as productive as possible because I really just want to get my part done. If I can just go ahead and knock mine out by the end of the month, like if it's sitting around ready the whole month of January, I feel comfortable. Like if I'm working on it all throughout January and need that shit done by February the 1st, like, because it needs to be installed and everything needs to be set up and arranged, and so like today, I hope today is like the conversation and the brainstorming has to be very positive today, and we definitely have to finalize some of these, some portions of this thing, and I'm actually going to have some of my art in there in the museum for Black History Month. So this is going to be the first time that I've ever had a painting in the museum. It's kind of a historic moment for me to have some art in the like a legit museum. So I think I already have the piece picked out that I'm going to use. I'm pretty sure. Right.
Oh, I lost our, let's put another caller. Screen list. Yeah, we got Aziz. Thanks for waiting.
Hey, hello.
Hey.
How are you?
What do you got?
I am a little fan of this show. My friend watched this show, and he like just talked to me about this show, and I forgot to introduce myself. I am Aziz. I'm from Saudi Arabia.
Oh,
Yeah,
welcome.
sorry. Yeah. Hi. Yeah. I just want to ask. Do you believe that religion cause the extremists that they have, like Islam? Do you believe that they cause Daesh, and that Christianity they cause KKK? Do you believe that?
Are the religions the sole source of it? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
No.
Yes. Do you believe that?
No. I think what we see from religions. So I think there are people who tend towards ideas, and if their religion tends to support those ideas and can be interpreted in such a way to foster those, then that's how you get more and more extreme. I also believe that there are people who may not tend towards the extreme, but who, if they are surrounded by a particular religious sect that is trending extreme, that those people can easily be moved there. That we are malleable. We want to fit in with the crowd, and we know that you can convince people to commit atrocities by convincing them that what they're doing is actually good. If you could convince someone to kill someone else, even if they were never inclined to actually killing another person to begin with, if you systematically break down the humanity of the other person and place them in an enemy box and make a strong case for why the world needs this person to die, I think you can move people to extremes, and I think some people are more easily moved than others, and I think that there are probably some people who won't be moved to extremes, and they will end up leaving the religion if it gets too extreme for a softer version. So it's a mix.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I just like want to say that Islam have 99% of the Muslims are not extremists because they know that Islam are not Islam is not about that.
So where did you get the 99% number?
Because there is 1.5 billion Muslims, and if you take just 1.5
sure.
billion Muslims.
It also depends on what you're going to define, how you're going to define extreme. Because when we look at polls, we see in different regions support for female genital mutilation may be incredibly high, but not to 99%, but 70, 80% in this region, and virtually non-existent in some others. And the idea of apostates being deserving of death or having the death penalty for blaspheming Allah or whatever, support for that is far above 1% in almost any region. So that's why I was. What do you think is extreme?
I think do you know what is 1% of 1.5 billion? There is 100 million, and there is no 100 million terrorists.
So maybe terrorists would have been a better word.
One of the causes.
So first of all, terrorists are different from extremists. They're probably the extremist of the extremists. But for example, there's a video online that you can go watch where you have a bunch of Muslims in the UK who are asked specific questions about what they would support. And their views and what they would support as far as, stoning women and other honor-killing type things, as far as what they think is good,
Yeah.
far greater than 1%. Whether or not they actually take action on that is a separate issue.
Oh, okay, okay.
I would think that if let's say there's 50% of Muslims in a particular area advocate for death for apostates, they're not all going to run around.
But like,
They're not all.
but like these people do not reason. I am in the Makkah University, and we learn things there. And we when we sit with these terrorists, when we sit with these extremists, and we try to reason with them, they just shout and they don't want to reason because when you show them when you show them Islam, they realize that they are wrong, and they just shout or they just it's scream, and they said, you are a kafir, you are a kafir. And these people do not reason. These people, when you talk to them, these people do not reason. And that,
I would argue that they do and that everybody does, but what you're basically saying, I can understand, that they are not responsive to your attempts to sway them.
Yeah, if you just sit with one of these extremists, one of these people that says, honor killing is from Islam, and you sit with them with a real Muslim who knows.
A real Muslim? How do we determine who's a real Muslim? How do we determine who's a real Muslim?
Forgive me for using real Muslim. I meant like a person who studied Quran.
Okay. You don't think that there are extremists who study the Quran and have a different interpretation than perhaps you do?
I think that there is no extremists that have gone to Makkah University, because in Makkah University, the first thing they teach us is to search for errors in the Quran, and if we find one, we try to reason.
So you're saying there are errors in the Quran?
No. If someone
you said that the first thing they teach you is to look for errors in the Quran, and if you find one, but so nobody's ever found one.
But I have seen many atheists and many Christians reading the Quran, and they just interrupt it with their own mind, and they just put aside the teaching of the Prophet. They put aside every explanation that the Prophet have put forward, and they just said, this is Islam. But if they read...
That's not what I'm at. So, are there errors in the Quran?
No.
Then why would they teach you to look for errors if there aren't any?
They teach you to read the Quran like if an atheist read the Quran without any explanation from the Prophet.
They're teaching you apologetics.
No. Okay, look. Islam as a religion was taught to us by the Prophet, right?
I don't know. I know that's the claim.
Yeah.
I'm not. But I don't know that. I don't consider the individual who's being cited an actual prophet.
Sure. He taught us Islam, and there is no verse in the Quran unless you find an authentic hadith that he talked about this verse. And I don't like when the people read the Quran and they interrupt it as they like. And that's what terrorists do. When you sit with the terrorists, they use verses to kill them, wherever they found them. If you see what the Prophet said about this verse. There was a time in the city of the prophet where there was some non-believers came in the night and kill Muslims when they walk alone. So this verse came to guard the Muslim at night, but when the non-believers, some of the non-believers just quit doing that, the verse was like the verse, you don't need it anymore. You know what I mean? And these like terrorists do not see what the prophet said, and that's what that's
So
what.
you do understand that you have a particular interpretation which you've been taught, which includes the idea that there are no mistakes, and these other people. Hang on.
Yeah.
These other people have a different interpretation. How does anybody tell which one is correct? And by the way, why was it okay to kill under that specific circumstance anyway?
Before you answer, let me ask the same question a slightly different way. Isn't the fact that the verse is ambiguous evidence that it's got errors?
Sorry?
If a particular verse can be interpreted 7 different ways, what good is it? It's an error just from that perspective.
Yeah. When you read that verse alone and you don't see what like the author said about that verse, you are just interrupted with your own way.
First of all, I have no indication of some extra context from the author. But even if there was, for example, if you go to Surah 489.
Okay.
This doesn't say anything about, hey, there are people who are killing Muslims, kill them. What it says is they wish that you should disbelieve, that there are people who are trying to sway Muslims away from religion. They wish that you should disbelieve as they disbelieve, and then you would be equal. Therefore, take note to yourselves, friends, don't be friends with them until they immigrate in the way of God. Then, if they turn their backs, take them and slay them wherever you find them. Take not to yourself any one of them as a friend or helper. So this verse, absent any other context, says, hey, there are people who are trying to sway you away from Islam. Don't be friends with them. And if they convert to Islam and then move away, you are to kill them. It doesn't say anything at all about this is self-defense. This is about belief. And if they believed and they stopped believing, you are to take them and slay them.
Okay. And that's and that's your interpretation when you.
I'm reading it.
Is that right?
Granted, I'm reading it in English.
Please, that is your interpretation when you read that verse. Isn't that right?
What's wrong with my interpretation?
Yes. The correct interpretation is what the prophet said.
So the prophet didn't say this?
What?
The prophet didn't say this?
No. This is the word of God. But you gotta see how the prophet acted on it.
So, no, I don't. If this is the word of God and the prophet acted differently, then the prophet is in conflict with God.
Bro, please, look, God sends messengers, God sends prophets with these books, so people does not, get these books and do whatever they want.
This isn't saying do whatever you want. This is saying kill apostates.
Okay, if you made a book, okay?
Yeah.
If you made a book, and someone just took a line from that book, and that line was like saying, if someone doesn't believe.
So if I read the next one, does it tell me that the last one was wrong and that I should interpret it a different way?
I would not write a book that says kill people who don't believe. There's no way, if my goal is to tell people how to live their life, there is no way I would write that phrase at all. Because Because even if I wrote it and intended to clarify it later, or have some prophet clarify it, I don't know why prophets need to clarify the Word of God, why the Word of God isn't clear enough on my own. But if I'm God and I write a passage that says, if anybody believes and then turns away, you are to take them and slay them, I am a fucking monster. Hang on.
Yeah.
And if I later often offer to correct it, to say, no, I didn't really mean, then I'm a fucking idiot.
Bro, why do you swear? Why did you swear?
Why shouldn't I swear? I'll tell you exactly why I swear. Because I'm talking to someone.
We are talking politely here, bro.
No,
we are talking politely.
We are talking politely. What is your objection to the word fuck?
Islamic countries have different sensibilities.
So here's the thing. I will retract it. If I do that, I'm an idiot or a monster. We can remove the F word from it if that's what's really standing in the way. But the reason that I include those words is for emphasis, because we're talking about 1 billion people who are convinced, many cases like you, that this is the perfect word of God. And then they do a tap dance about what is the correct interpretation, or what did the prophet do with regard to this. And they said here, and you make an argument like the one you just made to me, which is, hey, Matt, if you wrote a book like this, I wouldn't write a book like this. It's inhuman. I would never say, go kill people. Wait a minute, I was just teasing. That's stupid, because if the later passage gets removed, or separated, or if somebody says, no, the later passage doesn't clarify 489, it clarifies this other passage over here, now I'm leaving it all in the hands of people to interpret. And if what I've given them to interpret says kill people who stop believing, I'm an ass. I am a monster. I am instructing people in inhuman things. And the fact that you aren't willing to kill people doesn't mean that you have the correct interpretation.
God didn't leave people to make sense of this.
Did God write that passage?
He sent a prophet to
How do you know that?
These laws.
How do you know that? What kind of God says that passage and then sends a prophet to correct it?
No, he didn't send a prophet to correct it. Like Moses.
So it hasn't been corrected?
Like Jesus.
Has that passage been corrected?
Let me complete my sentence, man.
Did God write that passage?
Yes.
And is that passage good as it stands?
Did you read the whole chapter?
Yes, I'm looking at this one here. This passage 489. Is it good as it stands?
You just read a couple of verses.
Correct.
And you interrupted.
These were put in order by length. So are we talking about the original order, or are we talking about the one that's just slightly longer or slightly shorter than this one?
It doesn't matter what the rest of the passage says, unless something in the rest of the passage says ignore 489.
No. Man, I just want to tell you this last thing, because
are you going to answer any questions, or are you just going to tell me one last thing? Did God write that?
You are not allowing me.
You did say you did?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it good?
Yes.
And does it instruct you to kill non-believers?
No.
Then you're a liar.
Why?
Because it says, if they turn their backs, take them and slay them wherever you find them. That is an instruction to kill non-believers.
At any time, right?
I don't care. I don't care if he only meant to do it on Tuesdays or do it once every 50 years. It gives you an instruction to kill non-believers, doesn't it?
No.
Does that passage, Aziz, does that passage,
You are not allowing me to finish any sentence.
Aziz, does that passage say to slay non-believers?
What time?
Okay, now we're on to something, because you're acknowledging that it says slay the non-believers. right?
Yes, in what time?
I don't care what time. I don't care if it was 500 years ago or last Tuesday or last week. It says, does it not, slay non-believers, right?
Right. They
Right?
just tell us.
Why can't you be honest about what your book says when I'm looking right at it?
Yeah. You are not.
Does Allah want you to lie on His behalf?
No.
Then does that passage instruct someone at some time to slay non-believers because they are non-believers?
A specific time.
Okay, that passage instructs someone to slay non-believers at some specific time because they are non-believers, correct? Goodbye. Play the video back and go read it. The point that you're not getting.
The irony here is just so thick. I love it because he's complaining that certain people are so extremist that they can't listen to reason, and here we are trying to reason with him, and we're not getting through.
I would be fine if someone said, yes, that passage was written by God and instructs people to slay non-believers because they are non-believers, but it only applies at specific times in specific ways. I would be fine with that, but he couldn't even acknowledge that clearly, or when he did, he then turned around and changed it. This is what apologetics does to people. This is what religion does to people. When you believe that this book is perfect, you have already fooled yourself.
And you've cashed in your integrity to believe that, right?
Because the thing is, you can say this passage tells people to kill non-believers at this specific time, although that passage does not say that. But you can say it only applied at a specific time. And my response to you is, I don't care when you think it applied. Killing someone for not believing is immoral, inhuman, and Allah, if he wrote that, is an unmitigated thug who knows nothing about humanity, and he has poisoned your ability to understand because your only goal is to make excuses and reinterpret it in a way that suits what you want it to be. I don't care what you want it to be. And if there's a God, why does he need to send information in a book instead of talking to people? And if he writes down information in a book, why does he need to send prophets to do it? And why does he need to send prophets where, according to you, we're supposed to watch how the prophets follow the book? Because if the book says kill people and a prophet doesn't, I'd say he's in conflict with the book. And if your claim is, yeah, the book says kill people, but the prophet didn't, so we're going to follow the prophet, then why are you pointing to the book and saying it's perfect? Your entire process is a lie that people have fed you and you are feeding yourself, and it makes you sit there and do this tap dance in a discussion where when it says, if they turn their backs, take them and slay them wherever you find them, wherever, it doesn't say anything about whenever, ever. It is not a stretch to think that some people with a bent towards extremism would look at that verse and say, yes, I am instructed by Allah to kill apostates. You can talk about other interpretations and clarifications later, but if you try to make the case that it's absurd to think that people will kill apostates based on this passage, you are the one who has deceived yourself.
Well, Thomas Paine, 200 years ago, made this very eloquent argument that God would never use a book to communicate a message. Language changes, meaning the words change, they're subject to interpretation. You have to, there's this whole clarity problem. All of these holy books have this problem that they're subject to interpretation and spin, and so it's all bullshit. Anyway.
And now that he's off the phone, any God that wrote that is a fucking idiot. Not going down that path right now. We'll try this. Kieran in the UK, thanks for waiting.
So, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Very well. Happy Mother's Day to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
been so focused on this one.
Hey, Kieran?
Very on.
I'm just wondering, just for clarity, which community? The UK community, the US community, the atheist community, what? Or everybody?
The atheist community, the skeptic community, that we've been so focused on this one religion, Christianity, which, because that is the biggest challenge in our local environment, that's what we've been embedded in all our lives. But ultimately, the biggest problem religion in the world today is Islam. Now, I don't know what it's like over there, but...
Well, this is simple. So this is simple. I might agree with you that worldwide, the biggest religious threat to individual liberty and freedom is Islam. Wow, what was that noise?
Right.
I might agree with you that that's the case. That doesn't mean it's the biggest threat in the United States. It doesn't mean it's the biggest threat in Texas. It doesn't mean it's the biggest threat in Austin or my neighborhood. It also doesn't mean that my efforts in another area won't affect that. For example, if what we're actually opposed to is violations of the separation of religion and government, and we're addressing the single religion in the United States that is the biggest imposition and opposition to that status.
The biggest imposition on that status by far.
Yeah.
It's not even close.
Right.
Then by protecting that, we basically inoculate ourselves against the potential harm and threat of a religion, of some other religion coming in and taking over the government.
I'm not sure if that's true.
How is it not true that if in opposing Christian intrusions on liberties here, we build up a system that guarantees that religions can't intrude, then Islam is not going to be able to come over and take over the government?
Islam, unlike Christianity, is protected by a cloak of political correctness. If you criticize Islam,
it doesn't.
No, it isn't.
It doesn't. Even if it was, what difference does that make? They don't. If we have laws that prevent, that are strong against religious intrusions in government, then they apply to all religions.
I agree, and that's how it should be done. But let me give you the situation over here in England at the moment. We're in a situation where we have magazines that can say whatever they like about Christianity. They can mock Jesus, they can have cartoons saying pretty much whatever they like. But if you say something against Islam or Muhammad, their prophet, then you can literally get the police knocking on your door.
Yes.
In England, the mother of...
Do you know why? Do you know why?
There was hate speech.
Because the UK has awful free speech laws that offer regulation based on offense.
But that is selective against which religion it is, because that isn't enforced against.
So work toward making it not selective. So what we're talking about here is having laws that broadly prevent religious intrusion into government. And it doesn't matter what kind of religion it is.
Shouldn't do. You're right.
And so that's what you guys need to work for over there.
Yeah. So what we have is a fundamental difference in the existing laws with regard to what people can say. Now, I get what you're saying, that a tenor of political correctness, or I'm not even necessarily sure that that's the right word. If
it is the right word.
Okay. If the public view has been twisted such that we can't criticize X, is offering an unfair advantage to a particular religion that wants to intrude on a government, then that is definitely something that needs to be addressed. However, if it seems to be that it is this in conjunction with some rather sloppy laws, the very idea that we would have a law based on offense, you offended someone.
Yeah, that's absurd.
This is my. I talk with my friends in the UK all the time about this. There's fundamental disagreements about what should be permissible with free speech, and I won't pretend that the U.S. has managed to absolutely perfectly nail it. But I will defend every day that the U.S.'s version of free speech is superior to the UK's.
Agreed.
But that's different. That's different, though, from what the general tone in society is about what is appropriate or inappropriate. And there's massive disagreement on all those things. What I think is
Can I say something?
Sure.
I just think that you guys over in America really need to see what's happening in Europe as an example, and you should really be careful, because once the Muslim population gets
No.
They start to, yeah.
No.
They start to organize politically and impose Sharia law, whether you like
No.
They
Not going to
can't do that
happen
here.
here.
They can't do that here.
It's your laws that are the problem.
Okay, well
it's
then-
not the
well then
population of
America-
Muslims.
And if that started to happen,
and
if that started to happen, then you stand up in opposition to that.
That's right.
America will be left as a citadel by while the rest of the Western world becomes an Islamic Sharia state.
So okay, so are you calling us to have us come fix what's wrong in the UK?
No, of course not.
Okay.
You should see it
Yo,
as a
this dude
warning,
has
and you should take
a terrible case of Islamophobia so bad. They're going to impose Sharia law. They're going to organize politically.
Because of the way our laws are written.
No, it's because of the population of Muslims.
No,
there.
It's too many Muslims. I hate Muslims. Get them out.
Population of Muslims.
You don't think these European countries have all these different legislations protecting free speech? And
No.
But not the way the U.S. does.
Yeah.
No,
It's not
they
the
don't. The Europe's views on free speech are a fundamental problem. You know, you can't be a Holocaust denier and speak in Germany.
Yeah, I do know that. But
Okay.
about the Islamic,
I could be a Holocaust denier here in the United States. I would be derided for being a ridiculous, ill-informed buffoon, but I could do it.
It happens so slowly. You guys don't understand. It's piece by piece. It's this creeping theocracy. The bigger the population.
We don't have creeping theocracy here, okay? The theocrats here are actually in our government, and they're not Islam or Muslims. They're Christian dominionists.
Sorry?
So you're a tough guy, like you're really rough guy, just can't get enough guy.
Okay, look, a big problem is that people aren't allowed to say what they think is true here. When people talk about extremist, radical Islam, what they're really talking about is just orthodox, conservative Islam. Because, there's nothing extreme in what ISIS are doing in terms of what is in the Quran or the Hadith. Everything that the Islamic State do is pure sunnah. They back up everything they do with scriptural text from Islam.
I find it bizarre that you don't think I'm aware of what you're saying.
Yeah.
If you don't think that...
I just said I find it bizarre that you think I don't know what you're telling me.
I think this can happen to America like it's happened to all of these European countries.
No, not in the same way, not along those lines. But what I said was, I find it bizarre that you think I'm not aware of the information you're relaying.
I am so relieved that you do agree with me, because over here, it's almost like no one's allowed to talk about this.
Okay, that's not true. That's just not true. You are exaggerating the thing. Are you saying Pat Condell can't talk about it? I disagree with him on all kinds of things, but he certainly seems to be able to talk about it. Are you saying that you're not allowed to talk about it? Aren't you in the UK?
I'm saying any public politicians, any public speakers, if they say anything against Islam, that's it. Their career is over. That's their entire life.
Yeah, that means you need to change your culture.
Western culture we need to change.
It's not Western culture. That doesn't exist here.
Political correctness is bigger against Islam.
I think. Let me demonstrate how different the two governments are between our two nations. You say that anybody, a political figure in the UK, who said something negative about Islam, their career would be over. In the United States, any politician that says something negative about Islam, their career is off to a roaring start.
That's not what I'm saying.
No, I'm saying that. I'm saying that is the fundamental difference. I'm saying that we have in the United States a parade of people who think that it's okay to put up Islam as the scariest. This is the boogeyman. Islam is the boogeyman that Christian dominionists try to use in the United States to bolster their political positions. And in your place, it's the opposite.
Hold on. Trump tried to ban about 6 failed states from extremist Muslim countries, and all shit broke loose.
Yeah, so it should have.
As it should have.
It was a violation of the Constitution. You do not get to just regulate based on religion. we have freedom of religion here.
Yeah, for American citizens, not for the rest of the planet.
No, you cannot ban people based on their
Who does the
religion.
Constitution apply to? Who does the Constitution apply to? American citizens.
Yes.
Yes.
It's the president. And it also limits the powers of the president and the Congress, etc. However,
No.
hang on. Are you suggesting that the United States should prevent Muslims from entering the nation?
I think that would be an incredibly prudent move on your part. Yes.
I think that you are a reactionary buffoon because there are plenty of Muslims that don't represent a threat in the way you have become
I
so.
agree.
Okay, so then that can't be the criteria that we use to determine who we're going to give asylum to.
I'm not talking about Muslims.
You just
You just
I
said
just
it.
asked you, and you said it would be very prudent for us to stop Muslims from entering the country.
Yes, it would be.
Why?
Because of the ideology that they hold.
Okay, but not all Muslims have the same ideology, first of all.
Of course.
Okay, so if not all Muslims have the same ideology, why would it be prudent for us to stop all Muslims from entering the country?
But in Islam, politics and religion are not different. They're combined within the same thing.
I understand that that's the case in nation states where the Islamic regimes are the state.
It's not nation state. It's the Quran, it's the Hadith, it's an entire way of life.
Do you understand that not every Muslim gives a rat's ass what a particular interpretation of the Quran? Do you not understand that there are Muslims living all over Dearborn that are running around getting tattoos and partying and not caring too much about their religion? In the same way that we have liberal and moderate, in the same way that we have liberal, moderate, and fundamentalist Christians, this exists within Islam as well.
Yes. Do you realize that I've got lots of Muslim friends who drink alcohol and eat pork and do all these other things?
Yeah.
They call themselves Muslims, but they are not Muslims.
Okay, but if they call themselves Muslim and you stop them from coming into the country because they're Muslims, now you have eliminated their influence on Muslim culture.
Because there's no way of telling the ones that just want to be peaceful, normal guys and the ones that want to behead you.
Sure. How do I tell the difference between visitors in the UK who are sensible and who are not? Should we stop UK visitors?
You realize the Muslims are allowed to lie to non-Muslims?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you realize that anyone is allowed to lie?
Yeah.
I know that Christians aren't supposed to lie.
No. So wow.
Yeah, and yet
Is there anything you won't believe?
there are all kinds of
Anybody can believe.
justifications of Christians lying to non-believers or people of
I
other
know
faiths.
that, but they are advised not to lie. Muslims
So
are
what?
advised to lie.
So what?
No, I'm talking about doctrine.
Okay,
So what?
can you tell the difference between a Muslim who's going to lie and a Muslim who's not going to lie? A Muslim who's going to actually support a theocratic view that's going to marginalize you and one who's not? And if your solution is just to allow none of them into the country, how does that help anything?
Stops them from committing terrorism.
Okay,
And
so since I can't tell whether or not you're going to say something sensible or not, I should just hang up on you now. Because I don't know. I don't care. This is about we're way over time on the show, you see, and I need to figure out if I should stop the call now so that everybody can go to dinner. And so I have to make a judgment about whether or not it's in my best interest to continue listening to you to see if you're going to say something sensible. And if I can't tell, wouldn't it be more prudent of me just to hang up?
well, let me try and say something sensible.
Why don't you answer that question? This is about what you can identify.
Then yes.
Okay. Is it possible that there are violent dominionist Christians who would like to immigrate as well?
No.
Is it possible?
How is the Christian?
Is it possible that are you not aware of the dominionist Christian movement that wants a theocracy?
He's aware of it.
That was recently experienced.
Okay.
99% of it is Islamic.
I don't give a shit. I'm asking. Look. Here are two Christians. Tell me which one is a dominionist bent on a theocratic rule of the United States. Can you tell the difference?
Christians.
Can you tell the fucking difference?
No.
Okay, so now we have two Christians that you can't tell the difference between, and two Muslims that we can't tell the difference between. And you're saying it's prudent to not allow either Muslim in, or would you also say it's not prudent to allow either Christian in?
I would say look at the track record of Christian immigrants compared to Muslim immigrants.
Yeah, I have looked at the track record of Christian immigrants. Christians are trying to make the laws of the government of the United States conform to their religious views. They vote along those lines. They are marginalizing the rights of LGBT communities and more. Should we not oppose that?
Are they beheading soldiers in the street?
This is the fallacy of relative privation, where you seem to only care about what you view as the biggest problem. And I'm trying to point out there are other problems as well, and solving the problems that you can solve will insulate you to some extent against the other problem.
And see, this is one of the things. Stop. We started this segment of the show with a discussion about the discriminatory legislation that the Texas legislature has put forward here. And it's based on Christianity, a Christian interpretation of what the laws should look like. The effect of those laws will be transgender kids, gay kids will kill themselves, because we know that's what happens when they're subjected to reparative therapy, or they are completely excluded from public life, or they're outed to their parents. When they have no safe place, they kill themselves. They put forth laws that restrict the ability of women to even access basic medical care. And the net effect of that is the maternal mortality rate in this country looks like, or actually in this state, looks like that of a third world country. Because women are not being able to access basic health and prenatal care, reproductive health services. There's a whole range of stuff. People die because of the laws these people pass, and they pass these laws based on Christianity. It's not based on Islam. They are trying to enact a theocracy here. This is what we're up against, and that's why we're saying it's not about political correctness, that we don't lose our shit over Islam all the time. Yeah, I'm aware of what's going on in Europe and ISIS, and you guys need to work on your laws. But we don't have that same problem here. We have another set of problems, and it's focused on Christian dominionism.
The problems you guys had today.
Well, fix your shit and you'll have those problems. I can guarantee you, you'll end up with those problems, because while C of E is this largely, warm, fuzzy, I don't give a damn about religion, once you get rid of your Muslim problem and fix your laws regarding free speech, I'm pretty sure the Dominionists will be parading your way just like they've done in Australia.
Yeah.
The issue here is you have a very, let me see if I can make this easy. You have in your nation a problem that is a huge concern. And I see that and I agree with it. I agree that there is a problem there and that you need to do work. But calling us to tell us, hey, you guys should watch out, we've got this problem over here. We're aware of that, but we got problems of our own. Yeah. And so it's about triage. It is what you can do and what is most important and significant at that time. The problems in the UK with regard to, pick your poison, it doesn't even have to be, Islamic stuff, it could be UKIP or whatever else. That whatever problems are going on there, I have my own batch of problems here. If my work in changing people's minds and opposing legislation that is of a religious nature, and I'm not alone. I'm just talking in turn. Matt's doing it all by himself. I'm saying that if that succeeds, it will serve as an insulative barrier against the kind of problems that you're having. Is it a foolproof thing? Is it? No. Is there a guarantee? No. But what I'm going to try and do is work on the side of freedom and liberty. Not pretend that because I can't tell the difference of who the bad guy is in this circle versus the good guy in this circle, that it's good for all of them. Instead, one of the radicalized ISIS people in the United States, they're not immigrants. A chunk of them were born here. Okay?
Amen.
So if we're going to work on changing people's minds, rather than saying, evil and which one of you is not, so I'm not going to have anything to do with any of you. Why not build communities that get people to acknowledge what the laws should be, how we best protect our citizens, how we best encourage freedom, and fundamentally reform Islam by changing the world around it in the way that we have dramatic, but not wholly, Reformed Christianity by changing the world around it.
Okay, you say that we should try and reform Islam. I would argue that we are already experiencing an age of reformation in the Islamic world.
Me too.
Boko Haram, the Islamic State, Al-Shabaab, Al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, Al-whatever. These are all reformation movements.
And funded by who, though?
The faith to its pure and original form.
Yes.
They are sadly very accurate in their assessment of Islam and Muhammad. But that is what reformation is. Reformation
They are accurate.
Original source.
They are accurate in the versions. It's basically, it's cherry picking. It's the thing the Dominions do. It's the same thing the God hates fags people do. They're going to cherry pick the things, and they are on firm biblical footing. They are on firm Quranic footing.
It's just
It is cherry picking. Within the Quran, there are two dramatically different versions of Muhammad and what he's arguing for. Muhammad before and after Medina. And whichever one you focus on determines what your ideology is going to be.
The allegation, the latter verses within Medina are prioritized. So the Meccan verses.
Oh man, it's early in the morning.
They're not irrelevant across the board. Yes, it's a troubling situation. Oh my God. Yes, it's a troubling situation. The fact that we haven't solved the problem.
I'm gonna change this background.
There is no solution. There is no solution.
Well, then why are you talking to me? You're completely wasting my time. We run 12 minutes over, and you are so negative-minded you think there is no solution. I can give you a number of solutions. Reform towards the Mecca verses. Then you go to work to demonstrate that there's no good reason to believe in a God or in these other things. And then you work to establish interactions between the nation states that are fundamentally based on Islam and other free nations. And you build it up and you bombard them and you give them free internet. You relieve the poor, and you show that there's a better way of life. There's an overwhelming impetus for change, recognizing that there is a better way of life, that your religion that you bought into that makes you wear a sack so that nobody can see anything but your eyes, so that you can't, without the company of men, you can't drive a car. This sort of rebellion is happening. The fact that there are violent regimes that are focused on one aspect of Islam, which is horrific, is a real problem. The fact that we haven't solved all the problems doesn't mean there is no solution. And I have absolutely no time and no interest in wasting time with someone who is relegated to the position that there is no solution. And if all you did was to call up and bitch that there's no solution, and that this is terrible, the sky is falling, it's going to keep falling until recognize that you shouldn't give up, that you should try to change the world, that humanism, skepticism, education, these are the cornerstones of how we build a better society. And just because it doesn't happen overnight for the spoiled brats who want everything now and everything fixed and everything free, you got to actually do some work. Throw your hands in the air. You're not a friend of me, and I don't need to hear from you on the show. On that note, we'll be going to Star of India restaurant there at the thing. I don't know if you had anything to add to my...
No, it's just like, it reminds me of the people who say, the regressive liberals are afraid to say radical Islamic terrorist because that's a magic incantation.
I don't know if I'm a regressive liberal or not. It just depends on who you talk to, but I'm happy to talk about radical Islamic terrorists because it's a real thing.
Yeah.
Causing all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't solutions to the problems. And if you've got your mindset that there's no solution and you're willing to throw out the baby with the bathwater, we'll throw you out and I'll move on to keep doing what I'm doing. By the way, I mentioned the fallacy of relative privation, which not everybody's aware of, but it comes up over and over and over and over again. And it's this idea that you can only focus on the one biggest problem. Why are you focused on, curing athletes of cancer? Well, maybe because there are people also working on that, but we have a cure for athlete's foot now. Why are you focused on, this little simple piece of legislation here instead of whether or not, climate change? Well, I think climate change is a really big issue that in fact be focused on. I think we're making a lot of mistakes there. But to say that we should only focus on that to the exclusion of other problems is a mistake. You have triage of figuring out, first of all, what can I do? That you've all heard, think globally, act locally. When it comes to one of the tenets that I ascribe to is, what would the world be like if everybody took the action that I'm considering taking? Of course, there's exceptions to that. If I'm getting ready to eat a sandwich and everybody in the world ate a sandwich all at the same time, there's a problem. But in the sense of trying to figure out decision-making issues, everybody in the world decided that there's no solution and we should give up. I know that that world is worse.
Yep.
Because that world ceases to exist.
Sure, mine is incredibly simple.
Okay.
It's been on my mind a lot recently because I belong to a skeptical group here in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and we meet once a month and we talk about skepticism and rationality and stuff like that. But the issue that I want to confront you with is the principle of sufficient reason. So basically, it boils down in a nutshell, in layman's terms, that everything in the natural order has a perfectly reasonable explanation. There's nothing that's exempt, for example, from the laws of nature. There's nothing that gets a free pass. There's no magic fairy dust, okay, if you will. So I think the atheist, the only honest and rational and self-consistent and self-respecting atheist, has to be a hard determinist. Free will, there is no morality, and there's no love, really. It's just the mechanical working out of a great well-oiled machine. That's my proposition to you, and I'd like to hear your response.
How did you get to that from principle of sufficient reason, the atheist?
Because everything has, in principle, an explanation. And if you're an atheist, you don't believe in the supernatural, presumably.
Okay, so actually that's not true, and you're mostly right. Atheists don't believe in a God. It's entirely possible that somebody could be an atheist and believe in the supernatural, but you are correct that we do not believe in the supernatural because there isn't sufficient warrant for belief in that. But what I don't, let's just go with, let's not even put a label on it. I don't believe in a God, and I don't believe in the supernatural. What does that have to do with whether or not I accept that love is an observed part of reality, or that your other things were a hard determinism? If the evidence is
no free will
in opposition to hard determinism, I don't know why I'd have to accept that. But also when you went to free will and morality, I think in order to talk about those, we'd have to do some definitions, because depending on what kind of free will you're talking about, I don't believe it.
I'd like to keep it really, really simple.
Me too.
And just acknowledge the fact that if there is nothing beyond the natural, above the natural, and super just means above in Latin. So if there is no supernatural, if there's nothing above the natural, then everything is subject to natural cause and effect. And in principle, if we had the tools and if we had access to the subtle causes and effects, in principle, there's nothing that escapes the scientist's inquiry.
No, I definitely understand. And if you were to perhaps, it may be the case that if you were to have absolute knowledge of the position and spin of every particle in the universe, you could make perfect predictions. We don't know that to be the case. But the bigger issue here is that if everything has an explanation for why it is the way it is, that doesn't tell us anything at all about whether or not it necessarily needs to be a supernatural explanation. It could just be, for example, love is a label that we put on a complex variety of human emotions, experiences. We can identify things. It's not like a thing that exists unto itself. Matter of fact, it's a collection of different emotive behaviors and actions. We recognize that somebody does this and we label it love. It's not like love exists as some, independent thing. But let's say we had no explanation or understanding of this. To say that it must have a supernatural explanation, I don't know what the justification is for that.
No, I didn't say that. In fact,
if your statement is that if you reject the supernatural, you can have no explanation for these things, then you are in fact saying
no. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, if I could clarify, what I'm saying is that if it is the case that everything has, there's a good reason for everything, that everything has a sufficient reason or a sufficient cause. If it is the case, and I believe that it is, And if so it's a two-part conditional. And if there's no supernatural, then we must conclude that hard determinism is true and that there is the illusion of free will, perhaps, and the illusion of love and the illusion of morality, but in fact, it's just a great well-oiled machine. Now,
hang on, because you're starting with two ifs, and I don't know that. With two ifs, and you're reaching conclusions that I don't think are truly derived from those two ifs, and we haven't even established if those two ifs are the case.
Okay, well, if we assume the opposite, let's say that there's something that happens in this universe that doesn't have a cause. Are you comfortable with that?
First of all, it doesn't matter whether or not we're comfortable with something.
But do things just happen, or is there a reason?
No, I don't know how this is relevant. So let me get back to this.
Because I'm claiming that everything has a sufficient cause.
Sure.
The principle.
Okay, the idea that something has a sufficient cause is fine, but that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that you know what the sufficient cause is or anything about it. Okay.
Right.
So this is utterly David.
Either it's completely natural or it's not, right?
Either it's completely natural or it's not. Yes.
Right. Right. So if it is completely natural, then we can, with certainty, with logical 100% certainty, we can say that hard determinism is the state of affairs. No, you can't, because hard determinism isn't necessarily the case, and soft determinism allows for quantum indeterminacy and stuff, which still doesn't violate the natural law. But saying if it doesn't violate natural law, then it's hard determined. It's 100% determined.
What about quantum effects, like you just mentioned? What about
they're not? Those are still natural.
They're still natural. They're subject to natural law.
But they're not deterministic.
They are deterministic. It's just that our limited capabilities to measure and to
How do you know that? How do you know that?
Because I studied quantum physics and we use statistical methods precisely because we can't know two or more qualities and attributes of these quantum.
Sure, but here's the thing. What I'm talking about is, yes, the explanation for any x is natural or it's not. Those are the only two options. Okay?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that if the explanation for x is unknown, in that it's supernatural or not natural, however you want to say it, and also
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, what I'd like the atheist to do is to honestly consider that if there's no supernatural, then...
But that's not the atheist position. The atheist position is not there is no supernatural. My position as a skeptic is that I do not believe that there's anything supernatural because there has not been presented sufficient evidence to warrant that belief. It's not a claim that the supernatural doesn't exist. It's that we don't yet have evidentiary warrant to accept that it does.
I have evidence. I could provide you with evidence.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, provide the evidence for the supernatural. And why on earth would you call us instead of going after your Nobel Prize or your Templeton Prize?
The evidence is how nervous atheists get when I talk about determinism, because no one wants to...
Okay, David.
No one wants
David.
to not free, and that love is just a well-oiled machine, right?
David. How nervous atheist gets is utterly irrelevant. It's not an evidence for the supernatural. And first of all...
Can I complete my thought?
No. I'm going to complete mine first. You said that you could provide evidence for the supernatural, and you started off with something that is so boneheadedly irrelevant that it's incredibly frustrating. The idea that because a group of people who don't accept or reject, for example, the supernatural might get nervous when you bring up this, it doesn't mean that it's evidence for it.
Okay, let me restart.
I think you're confusing nervousness with rejecting your premises.
Let me put it another way to you, which would be less offensive, maybe.
It's not about offense.
We're not offended. I'm not offended.
Okay.
Make a damn argument and provide some evidence.
Okay. The damn argument I'll make is that if everything is caused by natural causes, no supernatural, then that means in principle that everything is 100% determined. Do you accept that much?
No, I accept that it's possible that may be the case, but not that it's demonstrable that it is the case.
I'm not convinced that there are things in the natural world that are random and not predictable.
ability depends on our level of knowledge, right?
I agree.
It's only a tool because of ignorance.
I agree.
That's why I say, in principle, we don't have the capability of even predicting weather in the future, and to a great extent. It's too complicated.
We have the ability to roughly predict weather. We can make predictions that are consistent with the information we have.
We can use generalizations and statistical approaches.
I agree. Please explain what the hell that has to do with your statement.
Know that there is the supernatural, because if there is no supernatural, then everything is natural, and that cannot be the case, because if it is the case...
David, write down what you just said. We know that there's supernatural, because if there's not, then everything is natural.
Yep.
Are you just going to spout irrelevant tautologies, or are you going to get to the actual evidence? You know what? Hey, David, we know that everything's natural, because if it wasn't, then the supernatural would be supernatural.
The other thing, if I could try one more thing with you before I go,
okay,
if it's possible, it would be the uncaused first cause. We know with certainty that there is an uncaused first cause.
No, we don't. No, we don't. No, we don't, David. No, we don't. We don't know that. We don't know that. First of all, I reject the notion that we know anything to an absolute certainty, so you're already engaged in some sloppiness there. But when you start talking about the second law of thermodynamics, it doesn't apply at the origin of the universe.
The laws of nature don't apply within the universe?
Then, yes, but we're talking about the origins of the universe. You're talking about an uncaused first cause. Well, you understand the laws of thermodynamics apply to closed systems, right?
Yeah, and the universe is a closed system.
Yeah, but the origin of the universe is outside of the closed system, right?
That's my God.
Please tell me something about your God other than that it is a sufficient explanation for the origin of the universe.
Existent.
How do you know that?
He has to be.
Okay, I'm not interested in these have to be's.
No.
I want to know how you know what you know about your God.
Because it's deduction, pure deduction. It's reason. Because if we posit the opposite, and say there's no first cause that's uncaused, then we have an infinite regressive.
So what?
And that cannot be.
You don't know that.
I do know that, because it's only a finite amount of time that would accomplish the heat death, and we haven't.
No. Your finite time and heat death apply to the local presentation of the universe. They don't apply. Time may not apply outside of the universe at all. Isn't your God timeless? So don't be talking to me about the properties of your God and saying that it must necessarily be a first cause because there hasn't been enough time in the local presentation of the universe. You're ignoring other potential hypotheses where the cosmos is in fact eternal.
Either there's an infinite chain of cause and effect,
okay,
or not, and if not, then there's a first uncaused cause. And
since we don't know which of those two is correct.
Well, no, we do know, because if we posit an infinite chain of cause and effect, that you and I literally cannot be here right now.
No, because
we are here.
So causality is necessarily temporal, correct?
Correct.
And time is a property.
Time begins with the universe.
Okay, so you can't talk about causality absent time, correct?
You talk about God causing the universe, yes. He's the first cause.
So you just said that causality was necessarily temporal, and if there's no time prior to the universe, under your model, then your God can't cause anything.
In the natural order, God is the first cause.
How do you know?
Posit the opposite and say there is no first cause, then that means infinite regress.
Yeah, the fact I know, David, the fact that you are unwilling to accept something as a possibility doesn't mean that it's not the case. The correct position here is that we have no explanation for the origins of the universe. We're still working on it. But the theists want to pretend, through philosophical masturbation, that they have cracked the case.
But may I ask you a personal question? Do you believe that the universe has a beginning or no?
That's not what we mean by universe. The standard, the normal presentation of the universe, we can't investigate, the very earliest moments of it. But do I think that the cosmos may in fact be eternal? That seems to be a plausible explanation supported by Alan Guth and others. that the universe, and in this context, the cosmos, which may be a multiverse or anything else, may in fact be eternal. But the thing is, we cannot investigate that.
We can use reason. We can apply reason and deduction, no?
Okay, but reason is only applicable if you have something to actually point it
Base it
to.
on.
So what are the other universes in the multiverse like?
We don't know, but we do know that cause and effect governs everything.
Do we? So if cause and effect is temporal and time is contained within our local presentation of the universe, you're asserting that other potential universes also have cause and effect.
Of course, because
how do you even know that they have time?
They don't have time. That doesn't bother me.
Okay, I don't care if it bothers you. You keep coming back to this. Your proof of this is that your proof of the one thing is because atheists are bothered by it. Your proof of the thing is that you're not comfortable